Welcome to Epilogue Podcast, the show where we discuss some stuff that happened on a different show ages ago which nobody really cares about anymore.
Hi, I'm Portponky.
And I'm LeBloc.
Today we're discussing Deep Space Nine, Season 6, Episode 23, Profit and Lace. Quark helps Zek reclaim his throne after he causes a furore by legislating equal rights for Ferengi women.
What a diplomatic summary.
Yes, well, I'm trying to be objective.
Why?
Well, I want to know what you thought. I don't want to bias you.
This episode is weird.
Weird how?
I didn't know how to feel about it. Well, I knew. I did not like it for the most part. But then I kept wanting to watch, and I liked everything Rom said, pretty much. I laughed at everything you said. So it was weird having these hearty laughs that were hidden inside this train wreck.
I'm glad you felt that way about Rom, because after rewatching this, I had a long, hard think about what I could praise about this episode. Eventually, I came to the conclusion that Rom generally held his part of the comedy together well. He had some terrible lines, but he had the physical comedy down a bit better. That's about the best I can say. So, you said it was mostly horrible. What can you praise about this one?
Just Rom. That's all I was getting at.
Okay.
Oh, and Sisko's indifference to the idea of Ferenginar being invaded.
Yeah, Worf says there would be no downside. Sisko doesn't even say, hey, come on, they're like a sovereign nation that is not allied with the Federation, but, don't want to start stuff.
I hope Nog wasn't in the room.
Oh, yeah, that would burn and sting.
Oh, I know another thing I can praise. They set up a red herring pretty well. In the beginning, Lita meets Zek, and he's taken with her. And then later...
You say he's taken with her. That's an awfully romantic take on what was shown, which was borderline sex creepiness.
I was trying to brush past that.
Okay. We'll continue. Where does that lead to a red herring?
And then later, Ishka is out of commission, and they need a female. And then Zek brings up Lita, and I thought, oh, we're going to see Lita in Ferengi makeup. But nope, that's not what happens.
That would have been slightly less terrible.
What makes this so terrible? Tell me.
What makes this episode so terrible?
Yes.
Do you really need that laid out? Well, you always know it's going to be a great Ferengi episode when it starts with Quark coercing his employees into basically sexual assault. Which is silly, because Sisko banned him from doing that in Season 1, episode Captive Pursuit. So, this may be the first time where something from Season 1 has already trumped something from Season 6 by the opening scene.
It expired.
Oh, he put a 5-year time limit. Don't you dare exert sexual favors from your employees at any point in the next 5 years.
And then we will reevaluate it. But then he never got around to it.
The first half of the episodes, I wouldn't say is offensively bad. Apart from
that happens later.
The opening bit where he's being a sex criminal is not great. But besides that, the first half is just bad, regular bad. the hilarious repeated line acting Grand Negus that warrants a warm and hearty laugh every time.
All 72 times it said.
I don't blame them too much for that, because jokes like that can fail or they can stick. This one failed because there wasn't much padding in between. Well, as in there was nothing but padding in between. There's no other jokes. That was the only joke, just repeatedly saying, "Oh, he's acting Grand Negus."
The frequency was too high.
Well, when you've got one joke, frequency is always going to be a problem. We have that scene in the middle with Quark and his mother having a fairly dramatic fight, which is completely out of tone of a comedy episode. It's completely out of place, but it's probably one of the few bits of this episode that was sort of well done.
It's a tension that's been building, and it's nice to see them explore that even momentarily.
Yeah, I don't know why it's in this episode though. It is so jarring how they start having an actual, like, claws-baited fight, spewing venom on each other. So yeah, okay. Then pretty much after that scene, it goes straight into Clunkersville. It's the capital city of the Clunker country after that. Each scene becomes worse and worse.
You would have a difficult time. Well, anyone, not just you. Anyone would have a difficult time finding anything to praise once we hit that point in the episode.
What were your thoughts when you saw the twist?
I thought Quark, or I guess Lumba, looked so weird, and I didn't like looking at her.
The way they did Armin Shimmerman up was actually not too bad in terms of just practical makeup application. Again, I'm stretching for something to say that's not just goodness, what on earth happened here?
I'm surprised he went along with this.
You should be, because he rejected the script the first time and refused to act the episode.
Why did he change his mind, or did they force him?
They rewrote it, which is why I think it's got some really clunky lines in, such as at the end, someone, I think it's Ishka, asks Quark, "Did you learn anything from your experience?" As in, what's the take-home positive message? So they rewrote it. He didn't speak favorably of the episode, so I don't know if he was contractually obliged to do it, but he was definitely deeply unhappy with the first draft of the script.
You mean he didn't enjoy flashing his chest while being Lumba? Oh, God.
It makes no sense, because apparently a full sort of sex change operation is just like an hour's work or something.
We've seen that physical modifications are trivial. This is more than that. They talked about hormones, and he made the full switch.
Yes, which seems unnecessary.
Wholly unnecessary.
But they'd written themselves into a corner because they showed that Ferengi females have smaller earlobes than males. If it wasn't for that, I think they could have just done a sort of cross-dressing kind of shtick, which I feel would have been a lot better. And I don't mean it would have been good. They had the opportunity for basically copying Some Like It Hot, which is what I think they were maybe going for.
Oh, I was thinking Tootsie.
Yeah, well, it's that is probably more what they based it on. But in Some Like It Hot, you've got the two male characters dressed as females, and the ending from that could line up perfectly with what happened with Nilva here.
I haven't seen that movie.
Oh, well, I don't want to spoil it. I don't know. I'm surprised that they didn't do anything different from what they did. I can't think of a good way to make this episode significantly worse.
Oh, I can.
Really?
If Lumba went all the way.
Yeah, that would probably be worse, yeah.
I thought that's where they were going when we see just the curtain and then noises. I thought he was going to give in, or even worse, be raped.
There is a lot of comedy based on essentially sort of rapey Ferengi guys, so yeah, I can see how you might have thought that. I'm very glad they didn't go that way.
Oh, that would have been horrific. This is bad enough, but I'm glad we didn't get that. Another thing I thought they were going to do. So when Ishka collapses, I thought it was all a ruse. I thought she took a play out of Zek's playbook and faked her death. To what end, I don't know, but I thought that's what she was doing. At first, then it becomes clear that would make no sense for her to do that.
It still would have been a better plotline than this. This episode was offensive on a number of different levels.
Yes, even minor ones, which I will bring up now. When they are using those open phone booths, there are 3 of them next to each other for some reason, because you don't want privacy when you make a phone call.
Oh, that's fairly standard for cold calling. You got a room full of guys with phones.
So that room exists just for cold calling people for meetings?
Yes, they've used it before.
Oh.
Or no, they've used a similar room before in Profit Motive when they're establishing the charity because Zek has gone good thanks to the wormhole aliens.
Oh, right.
I have no idea why you brought that up. I thought you were gonna bring up the ending. The scene with Odo and Quark, where Quark is crying because his female hormones are giving him raging out of control over sensitive emotions.
Yep, that is terrible. I'd like to point out that Odo is essentially naked all the time, so Quark and Odo had a half-naked hug.
That's true. I never really considered that. All of Odo's hugs are half naked, aren't they?
Not with Kira.
Oh! Was Kira in this episode?
Is that what we're going with? We don't want to talk this episode. Let's
Who
make
wasn't
up
in?
things.
Well, Brian wasn't in it. He's not been in it for a few. I think he was probably off shooting a film, so he dodged that bullet.
That's why this episode is so bad. He wasn't here to save it.
It's ironic because bad things usually happen to him.
But he's aware of the bad things. Quark didn't know this was horrible.
I'm at a loss for what to say about this episode. Yeah, if I was rewatching this casually, I would have skipped this one.
But why? It's so fun. I can't even say that.
It's yeah. How bad do you think this was then? Out of all the episodes you've seen, I mean, there's been some real terrible episodes. A couple in season 1 that were very bad, and what was that other one? The one on Ryza, Let He Who Is Without Sin, where Worf becomes an eco-terrorist. That was pretty bad too. How does this one rank in badness?
Almost the worst.
Almost the worst.
I still hate Q-less more.
because it's vacant and bland and talks down to the audience.
All of those things, yes. And it focuses on a character that I don't know about and who's omnipotent, so why would I care about anything about this guy? And then they're so focused on legacy instead of trying to carve their own path. And now you have me ranting about a season 1 episode.
So in this episode, they carved their own path. See how well that did for them?
Yeah, they had some good ideas that were executed terribly. I think this episode's main intent was to rectify things that they wrote about Ferengi a long time ago that they've been struggling with. It's stupid that women are supposed to be clothed all the time, so they tried to fix that here. Oh, there's a rule now. They can walk around and be people. They address that it doesn't make any sense for a people focused on profit to exclude half of its population. So now females can do business. So they're making these steps to get rid of these stupid things that they've done.
At the same time, I think some of the mindset that thought, hey, wouldn't it be funny if Ferengi were so terrible that their females were always naked? That mindset is still at play when writing this episode, because a lot of the comedy and happenstance is still very entrenched in that kind of basically sexist thinking.
It is weird in that way. Let's fix these sexist ideas that we had, but then at the same time embrace them for humor.
I admit it's a difficult hole for them to crawl out of. They made the Ferengi too ridiculously sexist. It's good that they made sexist aliens and could address sexism, but they dug themselves too far. They rectified a few things, I guess, in the long run, but it just seems like more digging.
Yeah, they dug sideways and then it collapsed on them.
Usually when an episode is painfully bad, we discuss what would have been good.
If this episode were skipped?
Is it that unsalvageable?
With the parts we have, I think so. Major revisions would need to take place.
Considering how bad they are at comedy, I'm kind of tempted to agree. I don't think cross-dressing, or in this case, transsexual, I guess, is what Court was being for a while. That's so difficult to do for humor, because almost always the humor is directed at, which is wrong. They do not have the comedy finesse to take anything from this, at least the second half of this plotline, and make it workable. I mean, if the first half is anything to show why, even without all the crazy sexist gender bending rubbish, they can't make the comedy work.
Yeah, I think we're being lenient on the intro because of what follows is so bad. If you take that intro and put it in another episode, it's awful.
Do you mean specifically him with Allura, or just
Yes.
the first half? Oh yeah, okay. Oh yeah, that's grin crawly by itself. But I mean, the first two acts where it's Zek, Ishka, and the other Ferengi mulling about, they're not funny.
No.
And that's basic comedy stuff. It didn't work. Then they pull out the kind of nitroglycerin of sex change stuff and just throw that in the mix, and big surprise, it detonates completely.
They didn't tighten their bottoms well enough.
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
Anal winks, I guess.
You're supposed to squeeze?
I think so.
I've been sitting wrong.
But you're not a female, so you could just sit all slouchy like a guy, because men and women are fundamentally different.
It was like a bad stand-up comedy act. Hey, isn't it funny how women do this?
It was more like a bad improv act.
Yeah.
Worse than comedy. There was so much hammy dialogue. Brunt was turning up and explaining the plot repeatedly and taunting them. Rom had quite a few sort of literal explanations as well. One that really annoyed me was when Zek says, "Oh, I'm going to go reclaim my throne or whatever." Rom says, "Brunt will keep fighting you at every turn." Yeah, thanks. That was very, very clear from the episode.
I liked one part in the dialogue when it's revealed Ishka said it's all Quark's fault, and then he says, "I wonder what she means by that." But that is drowned out by waves of awful dialogue.
Ishka was one of the stronger elements of this episode. It's really stupid that she's only in the first half.
What about her impressed you?
She's an actual character.
With motivation?
Yeah. Not just taking the characters that are common on the show and using them as cookie cutters to mock sexual stereotypes. And her sort of underhanded puppet mastery of Zek, which is slightly acknowledged by her. It just makes her have some depth, and she's sort of I don't know, I can't really remember. I've already tried to block out what happened in this episode, but I think it got significantly worse without her.
I wish they explored that more, how she has these admirable intentions and what she wants to advance Ferengi society, but then she's kind of doing it in an underhanded way. She's manipulating this guy actively. She's aware of it. She knows what she's doing. That's super interesting. But instead, she gets knocked out and we get Quark as a woman.
It does seem like there's some doublethink going on. As in, she actually genuinely does like Zek, and at the same time is manipulating him for her own gains.
Oh, yeah.
But she sees herself as perhaps even a martyr for the benefit of Renganar in the future. And she's probably right.
I do wonder how that will play out, because Zek will have to face what's happening at some point, I would think. Maybe not. Maybe he'll just never realize that she's rising to power and using him. But she does care for him, it seems like. So those are clashing ideals.
So are you saying you can't wait for them to revisit the outcome of this plotline?
Yep, I hope every episode is a Ferengi episode from here until the end.
Pretty sure the producers of this show didn't think that after watching this.
Suddenly, all the Ferengi disappeared. There was some weird plague. I don't know. They all died.
Oh, they can't do that.
An outbreak of an ear infection.
It's a Babylon 5 joke. Don't worry.
Oh, okay. That would be kind of funny. We can't fix these characters. Let's kill them all.
It would be extreme.
Just write about a vicious plague that's unstoppable.
Plagues don't attack bad guys, though.
This one targets.
Very medieval.
It discriminates. It says, "Is this a Ferengi? No? All right, moving on."
Speaking of moving on, let's go on to quotes. No doubt you've picked something amazing.
I feel like I'm trapped in my worst nightmare.
Okay.
That line made me laugh. I had to wonder, did they have self-awareness? Did they know this was awful? And they put that line in there as sort of giving the audience some rope. Like, here, save yourself. We know.
Well, when they wrote it, they thought it was going to be really good. One of the notes was passed from the producers or something. Said, "Oh, this is going to be a classic episode."
Oh,
It got stuck in kind of development hell a little bit. They needed to rewrite the script for Armin Shimmerman, and the director, who's Alexander Siddig Bashir, shot it more serious, and then they had to do reshoots and all this kind of stuff.
please tell me this was not his directorial debut.
No, he directed Business as Usual in season 5, where Quark teams up with his cousin Gala to sell weapons.
Okay, not that it matters, but it would make me profoundly sad if he tried out this thing.
I wouldn't blame him, but I know he probably would get blamed for it.
Yeah, there are so many parts, and you can't place it all on the director.
Well, it's certainly not his fault, because Business as Usual was a much snappier episode and was actually quite funny and very dramatic.
Things which this episode are not. Wait, things which, whatever. I don't even care.
Do you care enough to move on to the next episode?
I do. I want to move very quickly away from this episode.
What do you want to see next time? Any preference?
I want to see Cisco rage.
Cisco Rage episode.
Nonstop, relentless Cisco rage.
Let's find out what it is.
All right.
Okay. And thank goodness we've got this one done. Oh!